Welcome back to another episode of Affair, Root Cause and Fix. And as a reminder, I want to remind everyone, if you feel that you may be victim of an affair, seek professional help immediately. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I'm sharing these videos for entertainment purposes only. And with that being said, I wanted to remind everyone that you can find my book on Amazon. It's entitled Affair, Root Cause and Fix. You can go to Amazon and find it there, or you can just expand this video's description and then click the link there to find where to order it on Amazon. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Help support my channel. Ring that bell icon to be notified whenever I post another video. So let's go ahead and get started with episode 2. And within this episode, I want to talk about how to know if your partner is cheating. And this one can be really tough because based upon a couple's years of marriage, the level of trust could be quite strong. And trust is the product of several things. It can be the product of the longevity of the marriage. It can be the product of a religious marriage. It can be the product of just simply feeling that you love each other equally and that there's nothing to worry about. So trust can actually be a negative from the perspective that with that trust, it's easy to not pay close attention. I've never been one to question when my wife was going out with her girlfriends or her coworkers where they were going, how late they were staying out. That never crossed my mind. I never checked her cell phone. I never checked computer. I had no reason to do that. There was no reason to, because there was what I felt in my mind confidently 100%. There was 100% level of trust. So there was no reason to even think about that. And that degree of trust is something that led to the unwanted discovery, which we will discuss later on. But it's important, and something I emphasize, especially if you're listening to this video, and again, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos, because you've probably been searching for this on the internet. And you probably want to hear other people's opinions because you may be on the fence. You may be like, how do I know if my wife is cheating? How do I know if my spouse is cheating? You're probably trying to find an answer, and you may not be certain. And the last thing you probably want to do is confront your spouse and your assumptions be incorrect, because then that can lead to a lot of issues. Because if there was not an affair, then your spouse may become very angry and state that you don't trust them, and it can just lead to a lot of things. So we're going to get to that here in a minute. But one of the first things, and I never had any concerns because I had 100% trust. I mean, it was sincerely 100%. I had no reason to feel otherwise. And it was there was one time, and we went to a restaurant, and I went with my wife, and it's a place where she and her girlfriends typically go out. No big deal. But when we went into this place, there was a gentleman at the bar, and he was looking at my wife, and she looked at him, and it was kind of like, I don't know, it's weird. It was like they had talked or knew each other or whatever, and then we sat down, and this person they were by themselves, and then they came up, started talking to my wife, and it really became uncomfortable. And I'm not a confrontational kind of person. And I said, look, I said, you're unwelcome here. You need to go away. And there was obviously something, and I don't know, it was just weird. So I don't know if this is someone that had been trying to flirt with my wife when she was out with her girlfriends at this place, because he was there by himself, which, stereotyping someone, he seemed comfortable there. He was alone, and my perception of it was that probably someone that frequents that place. So if they frequent it, and my wife and her girlfriends also go there, there's a good possibility they may have seen each other. So I thought that was strange, but I didn't think anything beyond that. there was really no reason to, but I felt it was strange. I've never had trust issues. It's always been 100% trust. I did have a nightmare one time about my wife having an affair, and I woke up and talked to her, and we kind of laughed about it. And I think it was because we both enjoyed watching a popular TV series on the popular TV network that had a lot of affair type stuff in it, and that may have been what prompted my nightmare. But that was just a good laugh, nothing more. Didn't have any reason to feel that meant anything. So with my wife's line of work, she would frequently be out late, entertaining people from all parts of the world, which was understandable. They come in, they want to check out this, that, and the other, so she was the host, and she had to cater to their needs, so I didn't think anything about that. She would frequently go on work trips, but since I respected her work colleagues and her friends as well, I never thought anything about it. And again, I didn't have any reason to think anything about it. So how do you know if your wife is cheating, or how do you know that your spouse is cheating? Well, if you're not looking for it, it can be hard to find. And again, in my scenario with a 100% level of trust, again, a sincere 100% level of trust, and mine was built upon the longevity of the marriage, and then also the fact that we had a religious marriage. And I take things seriously. I consider myself to be a very very ethical person and a very moral person. So I don't I'm the type person I couldn't live with myself if I made a moral and or ethical mistake, because I would be upset with myself. So, I base the extreme degree of trust that we have that we had in our relationship upon the religious marriage, and then just the years of marriage, and the fact that I felt that she loved me and I loved her, and it was equal from both ends of the fence. So things always happen for a reason, and people sometimes say that if something's off, one can feel it in the pit of their stomach. You get a sick feeling in the pit of your stomach, and I seldom have that. And there was a trip, and it was a trip where my wife was going with work colleagues. Except this trip was a little bit different, because her work colleagues weren't plural. It was only one, so there was one work colleague, and it was one colleague that I'd never met, and they happened to carpool to the airport together, and that colleague left their car in my driveway. So, being a curious person, I had no reason to, but I poked my head in the windows and just kind of looked, and just out of curiosity, trying to profile this individual, because I'd never met him. And I know it's inappropriate rather, to stereotype people, but this person had red hair, and I stereotype, and don't take offense to this, but I often stereotype redheads as bad news. And I have no reason to, well, actually I do have a reason to feel that way, but that probably because one of my ex-fiancés was a redhead. Well, my only ex-fiancé was a redhead, so that's probably why I felt that way, but I didn't have a reason to, and I was looking in the vehicle, and I was profiling the mess of stuff in the vehicle, and then the types of sunglasses and all of that, and I'm thinking this girl is probably bad news, and I had no reason to feel that way, but I did. So, didn't think anything about it. They went to the airport together. They were gone out of state for multiple days for a big convention, huge convention. One of those conventions that had daily entertainment. They had all their food. They had late night entertainment with open bars, and it was basically just a free party with the benefit of it being a work event. But what happened And, at the time, obviously I didn't know anything had happened, and it was just, business as usual, out of town, work trip, didn't think anything about it. A few days after my wife returned, something struck me as strange, and it was the fact that one night after she went out with her girlfriends to dinner, like she typically does, number one, she was gone a little bit longer, which, as I mentioned earlier, I don't really pay attention to that, but I noticed it this time. But what was really strange, when she got back, and I'm notified when people pull into my driveway because I've got sensors, or camera rather, and I noticed that when she pulled in, she was sitting in the car on the phone, and this conversation had already hit about the 30-minute mark. So at that point in time, I knew that was out of character. And the reason I knew that's because of our many years of marriage. I knew the routine that she would come home and if she was on the phone, she would continue talking on the phone and go outside with the dog. But she didn't go outside with the dog, so I had a sick feeling, and I didn't know, but I had a sick feeling that something was up, and I knew I had to take action. So while the call was still going on in the driveway, I had an excuse to walk past and see if I could see what was going on. So I walked out like I'd forgotten to get the mail. And I looked at the vehicle, and it had a Bluetooth display, so I could see the number on the caller ID, and I quickly caught the name. But what was weird is that as soon as I walked by, there was the phone was, my wife hung up the phone abruptly. So something was, that signaled something was strange as well. And I got the mail, and then I just went back inside like nothing was up, and got back in bed and kept watching TV. But when my wife entered the room, you could tell she was very anxious and curious, and her tone of voice and breathing and all of that was a little bit off. So at that point in time, I knew that something was up, and I said, I just said, "Hey, who were you talking to in the driveway?" And she was like, "Oh, talking to her parents." I said, "Oh, okay, that's cool." I was just curious because, you're out there for a while. And I knew that was likely a lie. And I knew that I had to somehow investigate. Well, I knew first of all, I knew that I had to remain calm and act like I didn't feel like anything was up. But I knew that I had to think about it. And I knew that I had to get access to that phone to see, because I had a timestamp, because I had the timestamp from my camera, so I knew when the car entered the driveway, and I knew when the phone call hung up. So I knew that if there was not an active call from or to her parents during that time, that something was being covered up. So what did I do? Subscribe, ring that bell icon, and stay tuned for episode 3, where I will explain what I did next. And again, as a reminder, expand this video's description, and you can find the link to Affair, Root Cause and Fix. That's my book, and it's available for purchase on Amazon.